Do you ever find yourself wanting to really enjoy a game because every other person seems to be, yet no matter how much you play, how much time you dedicate to the game, you cannot seem to put your finger on that specific reason why you can't? Regardless, having a different opinion to someone online is always going to leave you open for criticism and personal attacks. This game is good will leave you open to anger from people that believe that the game is horrible. This game is bad will leave you open to the anger from people that believe that the game is fantastic. The purpose of the Worst Gacha Ever series is not to solely criticize a game, nor is it to praise it unconditionally. Rather, this video series exists as a means with which to both critique and to complement various different facets of a gacha game that I experienced over a set period of time, sometimes days, sometimes months. Hey, my name is Stix and welcome back to another episode of Worst Gacha Ever. If you enjoyed this series, make sure to like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell notification because YouTube told me if you don't, then your RNG is going to be terrible literally all year. Oh, and make sure to check out the last episode in this series at the end of the video. Before we go any further, I just want to take a moment here to thank all of the absolute chads and chadettes that support this channel via Patreon. You're all freaking legends. Seriously, each and every single one of you. I would offer to give each of you a kiss, but I suffer from severe intimacy issues. Additionally, if you want to stay up to date with all the latest MMO, gacha, and gaming news, take a second here to follow Mrs. Stix and I over on Twitter. We tweet daily. Alice Fiction is a brand new anime RPG that launched just last week on July 27th. Scouring Reddit, which admittedly is not the most reliable source of information, nor general opinion, and should therefore be taken with a grain of salt, I found a lot of players praising everything that Alice Fiction did right. The quality of life improvements made to the game that are just leagues above all of its competition. Well, okay, the general consensus was that this game provided a lot of quality of life improvements over its competition, and that it didn't look bad. Now, I've been playing this game since the day it launched, and I have a few things to say about it. Let's start with the sheer number of times that this game continues to crash, even 9 days after launching. I have never had a game crash as often as this has. I would play for an hour, maybe an hour and a half, every day, and I would crash a minimum of 2 separate times. Sometimes it would be after directly accessing the home screen. Other times it would be in the middle of a battle. This is not acceptable 9 days after launching. The first few days, sure, launch day woes and all that, but you cannot expect players to continue playing your game when you won't let them. This was made even more difficult by how often the game went into maintenance. I felt like every other day the game was down for an extended period of time while they attempted to fix, well, something else that happened to be wrong with it. I appreciate the compensatory stamina, but I would rather they take the time to sufficiently fix the issues in one large maintenance as opposed to repeated smaller ones. Alice Fiction is your typical gacha RPG, albeit where a lot of gacha games these days all employ chibi character models, Alice Fiction does not, which is a refreshing change. There's only so much I can take of tiny little characters with enormous heads. Graphically, this game is actually very aesthetically appeasing. The stages you engage enemies in, the character models and their corresponding portraits, which interestingly enough are not overly sexualized in the least. This is probably the first gacha in this entire series that doesn't have monstrous sized waifu booba. Not that I'm complaining, I just thought that it's worth pointing out. The special abilities, while flashy, were an issue, not the effects themselves, rather the repeated use of them in battle, which is probably by far my main concern with this game. All of the footage in this video that you are watching right now has been sped up 3 times, 3 whole times. That is what I set my battle speed to. and I have never turned it off. I also had to disable the animations that would play in battle due to how obnoxiously long each battle would take. Now, I know that you can argue long battles are good, and while I do agree the odd battle here and there, specifically boss battles can definitely be good, they can definitely be challenging, that was not the case in this game. It didn't matter if I was 10,000 or 50,000 combat power above the required level. Battles took such a long time that I did not want to actually do them. It legitimately made me set the entire game to auto, and I've never actually done this before because typically I find something redeeming about combat in all of the games that I've played. And I'm well aware that the auto combat in this game is genuinely bad, but when the combat is as unenjoyable as it is, it's still preferable to having to sit through it and do it yourself. Thus, the game would sit there for minutes at a time, auto battling. Don't believe me? Let me give you guys an example right now. I'll load up a battle from chapter 5, the very first battle that I have already 3-starred, and I will let this game play through at 1x speed with animations enabled.
This is an honor.
Leave it to me. No one can keep up. I'm ready. 3, 2, 1. Let's do this.
There.
I'm quite dashing. Light speed on the battlefield. I'm faster than you can see.
Don't cause me trouble.
This is how a genius fights. Don't underestimate a doctor. I'm not afraid of archers.
Going good.
3, 2,
Going good.
1. Let's do this. There.
Lost. Annihilation. Disappear in dust. Name not even worth remembering.
I'll show you what a great doctor can do. Your insurance won't cover this. Ouch! I'm ready. Great! I'm ready too. Great! Go! I'm quite dashing. Pride comes before the fall. Just like thunder. Light speed on the battlefield. I'm faster than you can see.
And that right there was only the first part of the battle. The second part takes even longer than the first. Animation skip and 3x speed are 100% an absolute necessity. The combat is not remotely close to being enjoyable on 1x speed. The fact that 3x is all but a requirement highlights how bad the gameplay is. If gameplay moved at the speed it did while at 3x speed, and then you could increase that speed by 2x or 3x, I might reconsider my opinion. Alas, as it stands, Alice Fiction moves at an absolutely horrendous rate. I'm sure if I optimized my units and my composition, that might be a little bit easier, but I spent most of my time in Alice Fiction doing the following. I'd log into the game, I'd immediately claim all of my daily login rewards. I would then proceed to top up my stamina using the gacha currency in-game, because I felt as though if I had higher level heroes, higher level skills, higher combat power, I might stand a better chance. Ultimately, that proved to be of very little importance, as I could increase my combat power by 30,000, I could gain 10 level ups, and still fail to successfully complete stages. I'm all for games increasing in difficulty. I do love a challenge, and I've gotten used to the sudden, drastic increases in difficulty gacha games seem to hit you with completely out of nowhere, but you're also typically presented with a method to overcome that difficulty, and I really felt like Alice Fiction didn't really do a very good job of offering that. But you know what, maybe this, it just isn't a very traditional game, right? Maybe I was playing it wrong, upgrading my character's grade, leveling them up, increasing their skill, obtaining and enhancing world memories. They're all traditional ways of increasing your fighting capacity. Maybe there are ways that I just didn't grasp that completely flew over my head. I just played it like I would any and every other gacha game that I've played. The game outside of the combat has players play through a number of chapters, with each chapter providing various missions for players to participate in. Each mission consisted of fighting 2 waves of enemies. Like always, there were resource quests that you could take for XP and gold in game, a PvP system where you engage other players, AI-controlled teams, events. There was a narrative, although it was honestly pretty basic, about what you'd expect out of a gacha. Definitely not on the level of something like Guardian Tales or Arknights. The gacha system, at least at launch, so currently, gives us essentially hundreds of pulls worth of currency. Rates themselves aren't great, but they aren't horrible. 2.5% for the highest rarity 3-star hero, 18% for 2-star, 1% for the rate up unit. Pity seems to be at 200. I obtained a grand total of 2 3-star units out of 70, maybe 80 pulls, which is roughly about the level of luck I'd expect for myself. Really, could have been worse, I guess. Unfortunately, for everything Alice Fiction does right, it is severely inhibited by its horrible combat system. There's a variety of different activities you can do, a story to follow, but every time I was forced to engage in combat, I'd just set my phone down and I'd let it do its thing. That way I could focus on literally anything else. Writing up a video, browsing Twitter. Outside of its combat, the amount of bugs really prevented me from playing for prolonged periods of time. Every time I'd crash, I'd close the game and boot up another one, only coming back in the evenings and the mornings, playing until the next inevitable crash. Overall, this has the potential to be a relatively fun game. I know there are people out there that do genuinely find it to be fun, but unfortunately, I'm just not one of them. Is Alice Fiction the worst gacha game of 2022? Hardly. It had a rocky launch and is still attempting to find its footing, but this is far from a bad game. Average? Maybe. Annoying at times? Definitely, but bad? Not even slightly. Now, if you're looking for the previous episode in the Worst Gacha Ever series, you can find that via this video right here, or if you're looking for a list of confirmed gacha games coming this year, then this video right over here.